Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is a 415th Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I've put onto YouTube. Straight away you'll see that this battle was fought on a custom map hosted by Brotherhood member Mars. Okay, we've got several Brotherhood members now that have got a lot of really nice custom maps, and I think this is a really nice custom map to play on here. Should be interesting, an interesting battle to watch on this custom map. Okay, our first teammate is RTW player Ace of Spades, and he has bought the Rome Giulio faction, and he has got 3 archers, 6 cavalry and 11 infantry. Okay, so that's 3 archers, 6 cavalry and 11 infantry. Our next teammate is Brotherhood member Bark, who has bought the Dacia faction. How many of us have seen Dacia bought to the 31k battlefield? My guess is not that many. And he's got 7 chosen archers, 7 chosen swordsmen, 4 cavalry and 2 light cavalry. Okay, so he's got an unusual army build here, but this will be an experimental army as he hasn't bought Dacia before. Okay, so there's the chosen archers. They've got long range, they do a lot of damage, and they're so tough you can use them as light infantry when they run out of arrows. Okay, and he's got his chosen swordsman. Now I think these chosen swordsmen are very underestimated infantry. You put good upgrades on them and you'd be surprised on how tough the chosen swordsmen are. And I speak from experience there, because I used a good upgrades on chosen swordsmen in my Britannia army. So they're pretty tough. And as you can see there, he's got 4 barbarian noble cavalry. Okay, and he's got 2 light cavalry as well. We'll just have a look at his barbarian cavalry there, and you can see they are fully upgraded. 3 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. There's a close-up of the barbarian noble cavalry if you haven't seen them before. Really tough cavalry and fully upgraded. Of course, that's going to make a big difference to their use on the battlefield. As you say, you got 2 Scythian mercenary cavalry units there, fast moving there. There's a close-up of them. As I say, Scythian mercenaries. Say they're archer cavalry, and they're fast moving. And there could be a reason that he's bought them. When you see the other team, you might see why. So I say there's Dacia there. As I say, they've got no chariots, no effective against armor axemen, no berserkers, no night raiders. They've got no kind of what you could call shock troops. But you know, what you see is what you get with them. So it'll be interesting to see how well Bark does with this experimental Dacian army. As I say, you don't see Dacia very often on the modern day 31k battlefield. Our next teammate is myself, Spartan Commander, who's bought his old Greek cities army of 14 Spartans and 5 cheap archers. Okay, so that's the 5 cheaper archers there and 14 Spartans. And our last teammate is an RTW player who's called himself Killjoy and has bought the Rome Giulio faction, but is in fact Brotherhood member Cormac. Now a lot of RTW veterans will remember Cormac, very good RTW player, and he's been in the Brotherhood for a long time. And Cormac has got 6 cavalry and 14 infantry. So there's our team. I think it's quite a diverse team with Dacia and Greek citizen and 2 Romes. It should be a great battle for you to watch, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, at this stage of the battle I thought we'd have another look at my old army formation. Now remember, this army may be 13, 14 years old, and this is an old formation that I've used. If you notice, can you see the front line of my army is double stacked? What I mean by that is you've got 2 Spartan units, one in front of the other. And also, as we know, the most vulnerable part of a formation is its flanks and rear. Well, if you notice how I've got a couple of units on a kind of an angle there from my front line there to try and make it more difficult for enemy troops to flank or get behind me there. Let's say this is a very old formation, but it worked well maybe 13 or 14 years ago, so I always like to try old ideas on a modern day battlefield. Okay, at this stage of the battle I thought we'd have a look at our Dacian allies setup here. You can see he's got his 2 fast moving Scythian mercenary units at the front. He's got his 4 heavy cavalry over by his infantry, and there's his formation there, his battle formation. As you can see, he's got archers in the front there, as he knows that his infantry will be very susceptible to archer fire, and that's why he's got so many archers to defend his infantry. I say it should be a great one for you to watch. Okay, at this stage of the battle I thought we'd have a look at Cormac's old-fashioned pilot shield unit. Now can you see how he's got that one unit kind of sticking out from his main formation there? Okay, now this was used several years ago, this type of pilot shield unit, but you don't see it used that often. But if you notice, can you see how narrow that unit is in comparison to the wide pilot shield units that we usually use? Well, because that unit is so narrow, there's less troops that can be damaged by enemy pilot fire, if you see what I mean, in comparison with a wide unit. So you'll see that he'll lose a lot less troops in that pilot shield unit because of the length than the width. And here is the other team. We have Brotherhood member Mars, who's bought the Rome Bruti faction. Now Mars has got just 10 infantry, 4 archers, and 6 cavalry. Okay, so 10 infantry, 4 archers, 6 cavalry. Now he usually brings quite serious cavalry, so let's have a look. And there you go. You can see he's got 8 upgrades on his Praetorian cavalry. So that's 2 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. Now we know that Praetorian cavalry do really good with just gold shield, gold attack. You put 2 experience stripes on them, and that makes them really, really serious cavalry. So you could be looking at battle winning troops there. It'll be interesting to see how well they do during the course of the battle. Their next teammate is a brother who's called himself General Kenobi, but is in fact Brotherhood member Uther, and he has unusually bought the Germania faction. Okay, so he's got 3 archers. He's got his Gothic cavalry there. Very underestimated cavalry, the Gothic cavalry. If you look at their upgrade, their general specifications, you'll find that they're pretty good. And he's got 1 barbarian light cavalry unit, which I'm thinking he's going to move that round to cause a lot of mayhem and bother to the enemy team there. He's usually quite good with those light cavalry units. So he's got 5 noble cavalry there. Gothic cavalry. There he's got 1 120-man spear unit, and he's got 6 chosen axemen. Remember, those axemen are effective against armor, and used correctly can cut wide swathes through heavily armoured troops. He's got Knight Raiders as his general. Now remember, those Knight Raiders bring a fear factor as well as being good infantry themselves. But I just wanted you to look at the difference between the size of Berserkers and ordinary infantry. Look at the size of them. Now remember, these Berserkers are based on real characters. Characters that used to have either a cocktail of drugs, were drunk, or had mental health problems and literally went berserk in battle. Both friend and foe alike tried to give them a wide berth. Even out of battle, they had kind of aura about them that kind of said, keep away from me. And in this game, they've got effective against armor maces. They've got 2 hit points, and in really incredibly attacking specifications as well. So as I say, these guys, used correctly, can be battle winning troops, as we've seen in the past. As long as they're in coordination with their allies, they can be the shock troops that can win a battle. So it'll be interesting to see how well Germania does during the course of the battle. Their next teammate is Brotherhood member Aurelius, who has bought the Pontus faction. Now Aurelius has been playing with Pontus lately and has become very good with them. It's not very often you see Pontus played very well on 31k battlefield. If you look at the upgrades on his spearmen, then can you see he's got 8 upgrades, 2 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. Now look at the length of those spears. That's why Roman generals don't like to fight pike and spear units head on, because they got to fight their way all the way down those pikes to kill the man on the other end. So that looks a pretty good army to me. There's a standard bearer there with a Pontus standard. And you've got 2 chariot archers there. And I think he's got 3 scythed heavy chariots there. And their last teammate is an RTW player who calls himself, I think you pronounce that Zhang Young, is it Zhao Young maybe? And he's bought the Bruti faction, and he's got 15 infantry, 1 archer unit, and 4 cavalry. As I say, I think it's Zhao Young, I think is that how you pronounce that. So there's the other team there, quite a diverse team as you can see, with Pontus, Germania, and 2 Romes against Dacia, Greek cities, and 2 Romes as well. Should be interesting to see exactly what's going to happen here. Now I wonder if Berserker is going to use his 2 fast moving Scythian mercenary units to try and activate the Germania Berserkers. Now remember, if an enemy unit gets near these berserkers, it automatically activates them. They will activate automatically if enemy unit gets near them, and then the Germania general will lose all control over them, and they'll just chase the nearest enemy unit. So that might be a plan that Bark's got in mind to use with his fast moving Scythian mercenaries. Okay, at this stage of the battle here, you can see Bark's Scythian mercenaries moving round to the left flank of the enemy here, probably shooting into the flank of those enemy Brutii troops. Also, if you can see, the Ace of Spades has brought his auxiliary Roman archers over there as well, probably looking to try and shoot into the flank of the enemy Brutii general there. But also there, as I say, if Bark could get that fast moving cavalry round behind the enemy team, he could actually activate those berserkers. As I say, you can see here that both Ace of Spades and I think Bark's archer cavalry there are shooting into those enemy Brutii troops. Okay, at this very early stage of the battle here, you can see that Killjoy or Cormac there is moving towards the enemy there. But if you notice here, can you see our ally, the Ace of Spades, over on our left flank? Now, would you say he looks a little bit isolated to you? If you were the other team, would you be looking at this Ace of Spades Julii army here? What you could do is maybe Germania and Brutii here, if they were quick enough, could team up and do a double hit on Ace of Spades maybe, and then the Pontus Aurelius could bring his pike army across there to block reinforcements getting to our ally. It's just a thought there. I just wonder what veterans and players watching this would do. Do you think that Pontus army could be a good blocking force if Germania and Brutii did a double attack on the Ace of Spades? Yeah, that could be an interesting tactic if it actually happens. Okay, at this stage of the battle, you can see that Bark's got his two Scythian fast-moving units over there, which he'd like to, as I say, activate those berserkers if he could. But he's been intercepted by enemy chariots. Here is a close-up of the Scythian cavalry being chopped up by those scythed wheels there of the enemy Pontus chariots there. And also I see there's a fast-moving Germania unit moving on as well, a barbarian cavalry, very light cavalry unit there, closing in on them as well. So Bark's plan to maybe get behind the rear of the Germania there to activate those berserkers might well be countered here by the fast-moving enemy troops. Okay, so my guess is there he probably won't be able to do what he wants to do with those fast-moving cavalry. I see there's some Germania, I think archers moving towards them as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they actually got routed, those two fast-moving cavalry units. But that would have been a good plan there to, as I say, get round and activate those berserker units there. Three of the most powerful, if not the powerfulest units in the game. Okay, can you see Mars here taking his Brutii troops in front of his Pontus ally there? Probably to try and help on the pilot shield units there against the enemy pilots there that would have hit Pontus there. You can see the Julii general there looked to me like he was thinking of a cavalry charge there, but then decided to pull back. I'm not surprised really, because if we're looking at the pilot exchange in here, it looks like it's kind of like a blizzard of pilots coming in from both sides. Lots of pilots there coming in, doing a lot of damage there. As I say, if you notice here, can you see that Cormac's one unit there, the one that sticks out a bit, won't suffer that many casualties, because as I say, because it's so narrow, it tends to not suffer as many casualties there as wider pilot shield units. If you might want to give it a try sometime, it's something a bit different. As I say, a few years ago, a lot of players were using that type of formation. Okay, if you notice here, I'm moving my Greek cities units over here to support Cormac. And I've got my cheap archers here now, are in a archer battle here with a couple of well upgraded Brutii Roman archer auxiliary there. But remember, cheap archers can do a lot of damage as well against more expensive archers. I don't mind if these expensive archers want to shoot their expensive arrows onto my cheap archers. At least they're they can concentrate on my cheap archers there instead of my more elite allies troops, if you see what I mean. Okay, so you can see the enemy Brutii and Pontus army here are massing, looking to try and take on Cormac's Julii army there. That's why I bought my Greek city army over there. I'm going to merge my army with my Julii ally. Okay, now remember, Pontus got very long pikes, and when they're fought in a thick formation like that, they can be very, very effective. Bark, make no mistake here, Bark will be using his chosen archers here to shoot into those Pontus pikemen to cause as many casualties as he can. As you can see here, I'm moving my Greek city force over there, as I say, to merge with Cormac's Julii infantry there. So we've got a kind of a combined army there against the enemy's combined army of Brutii and Pontus. Okay, but as you can see here, our Dacia ally there is waiting to attack. But as you can see here, Pontus is now moving in towards my Greek cities and my Julii ally there. And notice that Mars has put a lot of his units into Testudo. But you can see here, can you see Bark's Dacian units there? He's just holding them back at the moment. He may well be waiting for a tactical advantage to use his Dacian troops there, maybe into the rear or flanks of those engaged Pontus pikemen there. Okay, if you notice here, can you see he's got his archers shooting loads of arrows into those Pontus pikemen, and he's taking his chosen swordsman forward. Now, as I say, he may well be looking to charge into the rear of those Pontus pikemen there, but there's some enemy, that's that well upgraded enemy Brutii cavalry there, charging into those Dacian infantry, and bang, as they smash into those Dacian infantry there. Bark's doing the right thing, charging his Dacian infantry into that cavalry, so it's kind of like a charge bonus to try and neutralise another charge bonus there. So he's done well there to do that. Meanwhile, over here in the centre, as I said, you can see the Pontus general there really moving his pikemen in onto my Julii ally and eventually trying to get through to my Greek cities. But as you can see, Cormac and myself have merged our armies. Our Ace of Spades ally has moved a little bit closer to us there. Meanwhile, on the left flank here, you can see our Ace of Spades ally has seen off some Brutii cavalry and some Germania cavalry as well on our left flank. So he's done well there. But meanwhile, over here on our right flank here, you can see that well upgraded Brutii cavalry. Remember, that was the 8 upgrades, 2 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. I've done a lot of damage to Dacia. But you can see Cormac bringing his Julii cavalry in, and bangs, it smashes in there. Plus Bark's brought his some more of his cavalry over there as well. But you may well notice that Germania is now moving the troops closer to the fray. Let's pause the game for a second. So a lot of the Dacian units have been routed, but it looks like most of Mars's cavalry has been routed or very battle depleted in that little melee there. But you can see, as I say, Uther's brought his Germania troops over a little bit closer to the fray. I've still got my archers there shooting into the enemy troops. And over at the back here, you can see Ace of Spades cavalry chasing down the routers, making sure they won't rally there. But it'll be interesting to see if any of those well upgraded Brutii cavalry do rally eventually. Okay, you can see the Ace of Spades, his infantry is still fresh there, ready to engage the enemy Brutii infantry that are just kind of looking at each other at this time. But meanwhile, over here on the right flank, as I say, Cormac's cavalry there has routed a lot of the Brutii cavalry. But as you can see, the Germanic infantry is now moving forward, including those 3 Berserker units. Maybe 3 of the most powerfulest units in the game. As we've seen before, they are incredibly powerful. Right, okay, can you see that Uther has now activated all 3 of his Berserkers in one go? Okay, remember, newer players Rome Total War, when you see those red banners flashing on and off, that means the Berserkers are now activated. Okay, so straight away Uther loses all control over those Berserkers, and they will just charge at the nearest enemy unit. Now, one of the reasons I want to show you this battle is because there's a very old-fashioned tactic done here that I haven't seen done for many years, which you might find quite interesting in regard to the Berserkers. Okay, as I say, it's a tactic that we used to use years and years ago, but you don't see it very often on the modern day battlefield. Okay, you can see those Berserkers charging into that Dacian infantry there. Plus you've got Aurelius's chariots charging there with the fear factor that they bring. So there's a lot of fear going through the Dacian troops there. Remember that Dacia's morale, being barbarians, won't be that great. So there might be a good chance of a lot of the Dacian troops routing there. But if you notice here, can you see Bark using his Dacian cavalry there to chase off that enemy cavalry? Right. Okay then, so you can now see those 3 Berserker units are just heading towards the nearest enemy unit. As I say, once they go Berserk, Uther loses all control over them. He's got no control at all. So the Berserkers now are chasing the nearest enemy unit. And if you notice here, there's a lot of that Dacian cavalry left, but the Berserkers are now chasing, looks to me like maybe even the Dacian general unit there. Okay, so in their berserk mode, they just, as I say, they just head for the nearest enemy unit, whatever that enemy unit is. Uther's chosen axeman he's got there as well. But meanwhile, over here, can you see how Aurelius is moving his Pontus pikemen in towards my Julii ally and my Greek city units? If you notice here, I've turned a couple of my Greek city units outwards on the flank there, ready to expect an attack there from Germania on our right flank. Meanwhile, here over on our left flank here, you can see our Ace of Spades ally hasn't done a lot with his infantry there. You can see Cormac bringing his cavalry over. It wouldn't surprise me if he charged into some engaged enemy Brutii troops there, but he'll have to be careful that he doesn't charge into any of the spears there that are down. I'm probably going to up my spears there, but you can see the cavalry charging in and bang as he smashes into those engaged Brutii troops there. He maybe didn't rout as many as he wanted to, but he would have done a lot of serious damage to them, and I would have put my spears up to so that he doesn't lose any of his cavalry on my spears. Right, now can you see these three Berserkers? As I say, three of the most powerful units in the game are now chasing after barbarian cavalry. Now this is the tactic I wanted to tell you about. What we used to do years ago was to get a fast moving cavalry or even ordinary cavalry unit and draw the Berserkers away. Now wherever those cavalry units go, wherever that cavalry unit goes, these Berserkers will follow them, whether it's all the way over there or over there, those Berserkers will just follow them, and you can take those Berserkers away from the main battle. So you take three of the most powerful units in the game away from the main battle there, and really helps your allies out. And as they're running around chasing the cavalry, they're getting exhausted as well and becoming less battle proficient. So it's a really good tactic. It's an old-fashioned tactic, but you don't see it used that often. As I say, you can see here, I've got my spearmen there, facing there, and I say, if Bark wanted to, he could lead those Berserkers back to my spear units here, take his cavalry units on through my spear units. I put my spears down, and those Berserkers just run straight onto my spears. We've seen that as well. Veterans watching this, how many times have you seen that in the past? So at the moment, Bark just wants to take those Berserkers away from the battle. And as I say, that's perfectly alright for us. Take three of the most powerful units in the game away from the main battle and just exhaust them. And what he'll do is stop his cavalry, give the Berserkers time to catch him up, and then he'll ride off again just before the Berserkers get there. Meanwhile, you can see Uther here moving his effective against armour axemen round behind us. On our left flank here, you can see the Ace of Spades has moved his infantry round in a left flanking action towards the enemy Brutii general there. Okay, so it's a nice aggressive left flanking action there with his fresh troops to face the enemy Brutii infantry there. So it's a nice tactical move there by him. He's been using his cavalry well all over the battlefield, but not his infantry so much so far. But as I say, you can see Uther's here bought his effective against armour axemen in behind us, probably looking to charge into the rear of our engaged troops. So we must be aware of that. Okay, remember battlefield awareness. That's something we talk a lot about in the Brotherhood, battlefield awareness, keeping one eye on what's going on in front of you, but also watching around the battlefield with your other eye. Now if you notice here, can you see I'm turning a couple of my spear units to face the threat of those chosen axemen. Remember, barbarian troops would die quickly on spears or pikes. The barbarian general will know that, and when he sees my spears facing him there, it will put him off trying to attack now, because he knows his troops would just die quite quickly. Meanwhile, here you can see the enemy Brutii and Pontus aggressively attacking Cormac's Julii troops and my Greek city formation there. Okay, let's just pause the game for a second, because I'm going to ask you a tactical attack question here. Right, can you see how I formed a defensive box up with my spears now, so the enemy can't get in behind us? So if you were Uther's Germania troops here, if you were in charge of those troops here, could you see you'd like to charge through there and get into the back of our engaged troops? But they can't do that now, because I've got my spears at the rear. So let's just have a look at the battle in general here, at the battlefield in general here. You can see Pontus and, as I say, Brutii attacking myself and my Julii ally. And over here on the right flank, can you see Ace of Spades is aggressively attacking the enemy Brutii infantry there, okay, in a nice aggressive left flanking action there. Okay, so now if you were in charge of Uther's effective against armour axemen here, How would you use them? What would you do with these effective against armor axemen? Can you see a tactical advantage, attacking advantage here that you could use those Germania troops with? If you have a look at the battlefield. So you just imagine you're in charge of those effective against armor axemen. Is there anywhere on the battlefield that you would take them? Would you attack these Julio troops? See, there's a few Julio troops in front of my spears. Would you take the axemen to attack those Julio troops there, just to try and take them out before you actually come into contact with my spears? Is that something you would do? What do you think? Looking at the battlefield in general, what would you do with those chosen axemen there? Remember, thinking tactical attack here. Now, what about if you take them around the flank? What if you took those Germania chosen axemen round the flank, okay, over there, and then charge into the rear of those engaged Julio troops? Is that something that you might do? In kind of a hammer and anvil attack, with the enemy Brutio troops being the anvil and the Germania chosen axemen being the hammer. Is that something you maybe bring those Germania axemen round here and charge into the back of those Julio troops, maybe even routing them? Bearing in mind he's got that Knight Raider general that would bring fear to the enemy troops as well, lowering their morale. That's maybe something that he may well look at. But at the moment he seems to be just kind of threatening our battle formation there at the moment. Meanwhile, there's those three Berserkers there, off on their travels, following the cavalry. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Bark stopped his cavalry, because he's getting a bit far away from those Berserkers. There you go. See, he stopped his cavalry now, allowing the Berserkers to catch him up. Let's just pause the game for a second. Very old tactic. Stopped his cavalry, let the Berserkers catch up a little bit. Just before they get to him, he'll ride off again, making those Berserkers chase him all over the battlefield. And as I say, that's a really, really good tactic if you haven't seen that before. Tires the Berserkers out and keeps them away from the main battle. And the Germania general has lost his three most powerful units in the game. So now, what's Uther going to do with his Germanic axeman here, his chosen axeman? What's he going to do, I wonder? I see a couple of Dacian, rallied Dacian units try to attack his troops. But of course, barbarian troops that rally, that have been extremely battle damaged, their morale would be even lower than usual, and of course they'll rout, as you've just seen, extremely easily there. Okay, so that's one suggestion I said to you already. I wonder if Uther would take those axemen in just to attack those Julio troops that are standing just in front of my spearmen. Is that a good tactic? Is that something that you think you would do there? I see he's got his chosen archers, two of his chosen archers units shooting arrows into the flank and rear of my Greek city units there, but I think one of the Germania axe units there has just been, chosen axeman has just been routed, so I'm not sure. Meanwhile, here you can see the enemy Brutii and Pontus troops pushing in on Cormac's Julio troops and my Greek city troops there. Right, can you see now I've turned defense into attack, and I've started to move my Greek cities forward in an attacking mode. Now remember, we've seen me do this before with my Greek cities army. I stand there for a while, taking the enemy's attack, and then when I feel it's the right time, I then turn defense into attack. And that's what I'm doing with that group of Spartans there. Okay, now remember what we were talking about earlier. Can you see Uther has now taken his effective against armor chosen axemen in behind our allies' engaged Julio troops, looking to smash into the rear of them. Now that's a good tactical move there by Uther. I see that Ace of Spades has spotted that and moved his general unit over to try and neutralise the Germania attack. But my guess is that Uther are pushing his chosen axemen there into the rear of those enemy troops. Now see there, intimidated by nearby enemy. Can you see what the Julio troops are saying? Intimidated by nearby enemy, and that's that Knight Raider unit. One Knight Raider unit is intimidating those Roman troops, lowering their morale and making them more susceptible to routing. So that's a nice tactical move there by Uther with his Germania troops. But if you notice here, I've turned defense into attack again with another group of my Spartans. I'm really advancing forward there like a vice. I'm coming in from the left side and the right side, vicing those enemy troops in between my Spartan units there. But as I say, over here on our left flank here, as you can see, Uther throwing those chosen axemen into the rear of our allies' engaged troops there. So as you can see here, our allies' Julio troops are being sandwiched between Germania and Brutii. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of those Julio units started to rout now, especially with that Knight Raider unit sapping the morale. There you are. I can see a couple of Julii. Right, the Julii general has now been routed. Okay, that's what effective against armor axemen can do to Roman units. How much damage they can do to them. Okay, and you throw in a couple of those morale sapping Knight Raider units or Berserkers, and there you go. You can see a heck of a lot of our allies' Julii units on our left flank have now been routed. Let's have a check up on the Berserkers. We haven't seen them for a while. Where are they? They even seem to have disappeared off the map at the moment. Oh, there they are, in that dip. And look how far away those Berserkers are. Okay? In comparison to the battle. There they are, down in a dip, and look where the main battle is. And that's what a tactic is from years and years ago, as used on the modern day battlefield. So well done to Bark for drawing away the enemy Berserker units there. That could have made the difference. That could have been a battle-winning tactic that he did there. Let's say, meanwhile, on our left flank here, the enemy Brutii troops, the green Brutii troops, and the Germania troops have done well on our left flank. But as I say, I've turned my Greek cities now from defence into attack here. And if you notice, I'm pushing in from both sides there in like a vice attack on those enemy Pontus and enemy Brutii troops there. Okay? As I say, you've seen me do this before with my Greek cities army. I stand and take the enemy's attack until I'm ready to attack, and then I do turn defence into attack. And that's quite a good tactic with Greek cities. You can see now I'm pushing in from both sides. Really aggressive there. If you notice, a couple of my Greek city units are routed. They fought down to one man. Did you see one of the units fought down to one man, the other one down to about 7? So there you go. Really pushing in there on the enemy troops there. If you notice, Cormac's throwing his Julii troops into the fray as well. So both of us now are attacking the enemy troops. We stood our ground, took the enemy attack, and then when we were both ready, as I say, we turned defence into attack and attacked the enemy troops that had been attacking us for so long. You can see a lot of the enemy troops have routed now. Just routed Mars's general. I see the other Brutii general is still alive there, but as you know, I should go for that Brutii general with my Greek cities. Can you see I'm moving towards it? Remember, if ever I see an enemy general close to me, I'm going to attack. And there we are, we've routed that other enemy Brutii general as well. So it looks like our team has managed to go on and win this battle here. Here you can see a Dacian archer unit there with their swords drawn. They're all attacking against the enemy cavalry unit. But as I say, you can see here now that we've actually gone on to win this. I wanted to show this battle because I thought it was interesting to see Dacia fighting on 31k battlefield, but also that old Berserker tactic of drawing the Berserkers away from the main battle. I thought that you might have found that quite interesting. As you can see here, there's one Germania spear unit left. My guess is, though, that it will become probably intimidated by numbers of troops there. You notice that all our troops moving there. Can you see I'm moving the bulk of my Greek cities army over? And you might notice that that spear unit will probably become distraught by number of enemy troops, and will probably there you are, distraught over the number of enemy troops, and we're rout. You see, the morale was lowered so much by the number of our troops there that it routed it. So as you can see, we still got quite a number of our troops left, but that was quite a tough battle there. But as I say, I hope you enjoyed seeing Dacia, and I hope you enjoyed seeing that old tactic with the Berserkers there. I just thought that was an interesting thing to show you. I think Uther has just admitted defeat there, so his Berserkers are now running off the battlefield. Okay, so you can see it was an average victory there. So as you say, most of the time I like to show close victories, but that was an average one there. But as I say, I thought it was interesting to see say Dacia on the modern 31k battlefield, and that old tactic of chase, getting Berserkers to chase you. Highest kills in the game goes to Ace of Spades, 1,705. So well done to the Ace of Spades there. Some really good kills. Bark with his Dacia units there, he got 1,025 kills. I suppose that's not bad for Dacia. As I say, up against good players. Let's say Cormac didn't do too badly there. See, Mars got some good kills. Uther got some good kills there with Germania, 1,192. So well done to him. Aurelius, with another so-called lesser faction, Pontus, got the highest kills in his game. I don't think the Brutii general got the kills that he wanted there. But I just thought that was an interesting battle for you to watch there. As I say, with Dacia, Rome, Greek cities there, and as I say, it's nice to see Dacia on the modern day battlefield. As I say, you've got Rome, Dacia and Greek cities in one army, and you've got Rome, Germania, Pontus and Rome in another army. So I thought that was quite an interesting combination of factions for you to watch. Okay, so just like to say, really well played to Mars, Uther, Aurelius and Zheng Yang there, well done, and really well played to everybody in the game. Spartan Commander saying bye for now.